Hello, 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 and welcome to 20 Years with the Narcissist. I'm your host, Shakira, and I would like to start with words of affirmations. You are whole, you are complete, you are enough. You are strong, you are brave, you are resilient, you are guided, you are protected, and you are safe. And this here is a safe space. On this week's episode, we will be talking about who can be manipulated and who is the manipulator. In my experience, I was the one who was being manipulated. But I think when you're around a manipulator, you can kind of become a manipulator yourself sometimes. Who can be manipulated? According to Dana Morningstar, when it comes to who can be manipulated, it could literally be anyone, anywhere, at any time. You can be any age, any gender, occupation, religion, sexual orientation, educational level, or nationality. Manipulation can happen between family, friends, co-workers, your neighbor, or even a stranger. There are levels to manipulation, which I talk about in my previous episodes. It can be intentional or unintentional. It can be a predator or well intended person with unreasonable expectations or a dysfunctional way of getting their needs met. There's a misconception that most manipulators are products of childhood abuse or neglect, but this is not always the case. Dana states that people spend years in therapy trying to heal from these traumas when that's not the entire problem or issue at hand. I mean, they literally go over every nightmare they ever went through just to not find a resolve to the problem because other factors that aren't being addressed may be at play. Not all manipulators have malicious intent. They could have codependency and may be well intended, but still have behaviors that are controlling or manipulative. They may be one of those people who have a need or want or desire to make people change, whether they asked for their help or not. I think I might be guilty of this because I always just want to help fix people relationships or even help them change negative behaviors that they aren't quite ready to change with or without their consent. I just kind of jump in there and be like, girl, let me, thinking I'm Iyanla, I could fix your life. But I absolutely meant well. There was never any malice at all. But this kind of behavior can cause resentment, which results in a negative outcome. So, of course, I had to refrain from treating anybody else this way. With that being said, not only narcissists can be manipulative, those who constantly are manipulative in a troublesome way tend to have a personality disorder, emotional immaturity, and addiction, possibly untreated mental illness. And they could have one or more or a mixture of these going on. Therefore, it may take time before you can even see their behavior distinctly. Manipulators span from parents who guilt trip you and never take accountability for the abuse or negative treatment you've endured, and significant others who want to get their way, to cult leaders or child predators and power hungry dictators like the one we got in office, that guy. It isn't your job to diagnose people or even yourself, but to have an understanding that there are people out here with behaviors that are troublesome and, simply put, bad for your health. And you need to become fully aware of what those behaviors look like and how to either steer clear of these people or at the very least have the knowledge to be able to deal with them in a way that does not negatively affect your health. That saying, only God can judge, is only true on a spiritual level. But for your mental, emotional, even possibly your physical health, it is extremely healthy to judge someone based on their character and actions so that you can protect yourself from possible harm. So, in this episode, I am going to name and describe some of the different disorders and diagnoses that don't zoom in on the titles. It's the behaviors that are important so that you know what to look out for. That's my whole purpose of this podcast, is to put y'all up on game. So, number one, antisocial personality disorder. ASPD, also known as sociopaths and psychopaths. These types have little to no regard for social norms or societal rules. They are manipulative and exploitative. The antisocial part of this disorder does not mean they don't like to be social or that they rather be alone or lonely, although some may. It more so means that they get their needs met in a way that is anti-society. AKA not the way the rest of us would, you know? They go against the social norms and or values. Their moral compass fluctuates. It isn't fixed. It's based on what they need or want at that time. They're often hypercritical, yet expect others to trust them and treat them with honesty and loyalty and respect, whether they treat you the same or not, which is usually not. They are likely irresponsible, impulsive, entitled, and have no sincere guilt or remorse for their actions. With all of this going on, you think that you would be able to see this type of person coming from a mile away, right? But unfortunately, they are very charming and likable, charismatic, and social, which makes it difficult to see the dangerous person that lies beneath. We talking about our Jeffrey Dahmers, the Ted Bundys. They were regular degulars, walking around, getting people to get into their cars just to, kill them later on. And the average person, it's hard for them to believe that somebody like this can be likable. So take the devil, for example. It is written in the scriptures that he portrays himself as handsome and charming and charismatic, right? Therefore, people assume he's nice and kind and caring and, but in reality, his goal is to destroy mankind, or at least help us destroy ourselves, right? I mean, he could just really whisper and tell us, have us do dumb stuff. Anyway, I call these kind of people the devil's foot soldiers because their behaviors are that of the devil. Very self-serving with malice, ill will, and ill intent. And nothing or no one that is of God would behave in this way. People with ASPD tend to have self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and situational awareness, which makes it easier to prey on the emotions and vulnerabilities of others. And they're able to get away with it for years, if not decades, because they make it difficult for you to see them for who they really are. Where narcissists, on the other hand, are so egotistical that they don't care about trying to hide their behavior because they see nothing wrong with the way they're behaving. What I do? What's the problem? That sense of entitlement makes them think and act in whatever way they see fit. I'm going to do what I want, how I want, and who going to check me? However, there is an overlap with people having ASPD and NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder, because in reality, those with ASPD are narcissistic at their core. But not all narcissists are so extreme or exploitative as those with ASPD. Narcissistic personality disorder. People with NPD have an inflated self-image and are self-absorbed, to the point that they have no care, are unaware or unconcerned about the needs and wants of others. They may expect special treatment and favors from others. They are usually grandiose. They think that they are special, unique, and different. Sometimes on a level where they believe they are a prophet or a reincarnation of someone famous or of historical importance. Or they have a superior intellect. Everybody's dumb and I'm the only smart one on the planet, which they do not. But you can't tell them that. They are arrogant, entitled, manipulative, and pathological liars. When they're negative behaviors come to light and you can see them like a flashlight blinding you. And their lack of accountability can be bizarre and even jaw dropping. Because what? Are you really serious? And you can best believe they be dead serious. Will play all the way in your face and make you feel like you crazy and you know you're not. Especially when they continue to lie or fake an emotion in order to avoid consequences, like my narc did when I found out he had a new phone. That bad boy was sitting on top of the TV and it said, I go to touch it and I'm like, it says no SIM card. I'm like, what's this? I confronted them about it and asked, to see the phone. Let me see your new phone. And as soon as I open the thing up, it's a number there that didn't have a name saved. So I asked him, well, who this? He said, oh, I don't know. The number came with the phone. Really? He must have thought I was as foolish as that statement that came out of his mouth. That's when I made the decision to move to Florida. He then decided to start crying. It was so insincere and pathetic. It took everything in me not to bust out laughing. But I didn't waver on my decision to leave. I got the hell up out of there. You hear me? As insincere as those tears were, only the narcissist and those who support his nonsense, which in the psychiatry world, they call them flying monkeys. Because they believe everything that the narc says and will even go as far as backing up their play. Another example of this would be my third narc who I was in school with. And he would display like behaviors that were so clear, but those who called themselves his friend would be like, oh, he just being him. I mean, I see it. I see what you talking about. It's just, I'm going to just keep being nice to him anyway. I mean, he cool with me. That's my homie. When I tell y'all I could not wrap my brain cells around this until I found out the name for them. Like, oh, flying monkeys. It seems like a very suitable name. Don't you think? I believe they are just as delusional as he is, quite honestly. But who am I to judge? Narcissists have very sensitive egos. So when that ego is bruised or threatened in any way, they tend to lash out. Some may go into a full-blown temper tantrum and start calling you names, yelling, throwing things, and some may even get violent. Once the tantrum is over, they may even feel like, I won. Now, like, what? Then they still expect others to soothe them by giving them their way. Now do what I said and don't make me act like that again. Their infuriating, illogical, immature behavior can be compared to playing chess with a pigeon. So there's a joke. The joke goes, how is arguing with a narcissist like playing chess with a pigeon? And the answer is, no matter how good you are, the pigeon is just going to knock the pieces all down and crap all over the table and strut around like, I'm the champion. I won. People with this personality often embellish and falsify their accomplishments or talents. Of course, they have a sense of entitlement and lack of sympathy or empathy for others and cannot handle criticism without unquestioned obedience. What is unquestioned obedience? It is individuals who comply with their demands and expectations without critical evaluation, aka don't judge me. Don't talk about it. If you ain't for it, keep your mouth shut and keep it moving. They often use abuse or exploit others to get their way and are often pathological liars. Some are leeches that will suck you dry and take everything that they can from you as long as you let them, until they can't take nothing else. This sense of entitlement allows them to believe that they can punish whoever doesn't give them the respect, admiration, or attention that they seek or require. It is very common for them to have a history of breaking hearts. Trust me, I know from experience. And it is indeed one of the worst feelings in the world. Not all narcissists are this malicious. Some are more arrogant, difficult, subtly devaluing, self-absorbed, and standoffish, which is more a description of my narc, quite honestly. And they're more on that end of the spectrum. But no matter where they are on the spectrum, if they refuse to treat people with dignity and respect, then that is indeed a problem. As you can see, those with ASPD and MPD tend to live two lives, one in reality and the other in a fantasy created by themselves. In this fantasy world, they are liars, deceivers, cons, future fakers, gaslighters. They give lame excuses and never take accountability for their actions. They are delusional. In their fantasy, they are either the hero or the victim. Woe is me. For example, when my narc divorced me, he told the E-man that he wanted to divorce me because of some of my traits, in his words, and some other things that he did not like about me. And of course, my family, who couldn't stand him because of how he treated me. But the reality was, I lost weight. And he didn't like the fact that my ass had gotten smaller. We just gonna say it how it is. In his words, what am I supposed to do with that body of mine? You have the body of a 13-year-old boy. When it comes to someone who lies, it is extremely difficult to believe anything that comes out of their mouth. Number 3, dark triad personality. It isn't so much a personality disorder per se, but a destructive combination of a distorted personality. So it's narcissism, the learned behavior of manipulation, and sadism, which is the pleasure, usually sexual gratification, of inflicting pain, suffering, or humiliation upon others. Machiavellianism, which I still got to find out what that is, and the disordered brain composition of psychopathy, which results in a person who is highly manipulative, exploitative, lacking empathy, sympathy, and remorse, and takes great pleasure in watching people suffer by causing damage and inflicting pain upon others. Have you heard that saying that some people just want to watch the world burn? Well, they would be those kind of people. Run. Number 4, borderline personality disorder. BPD includes chronic fears of abandonment, unstable social relationships, unstable self-image, attention-seeking behavior, emotional immaturity, inappropriate or non-existent boundaries. People with this disorder usually engage in impulsive and self-harming acts, such as unsafe promiscuity, substance abuse, and self-harm. These would be your cutters, the people who just cut themselves, or those who literally pull strands of their hair out of their head, and they do it in certain spots so they can put it in a ponytail and hide it. They find it difficult to regulate their emotions. They experience chronic feelings of emptiness. They have bouts of intense anger that are disproportionate or inappropriate to the situation. You looking at them like, why you just react like that? It wasn't even that serious. They have fleeting paranoia. People with this disorder tend to have an intense and chaotic life. They are hypersensitive to rejection and often have outbursts of anger and emotional tantrums. They can be very manipulative and hold others emotionally hostage by threatening suicide if they don't get their way. As you can see, a lot of characteristics or behaviors between ASPD, MPD, and BPD overlap. It is common for a narcissist or sociopath to become erratic, dramatic, irrational, in an attempt to control their targets. The main difference, people with BPD, they have empathy, sympathy, and remorse. So even though they do manipulate to get their way, they are not exploitative the way a narcissist or a sociopath would be. Their behavior is more destructive for them than it is for others. According to Dana Morningstar, the reality stars of today are a perfect example of borderline personality disorder. Because if they are truly that way off camera, then it is possible that they are indeed dealing with extreme frustration, anger, and sadness as a result of all of the ongoing chaos that they are experiencing. You see how they act on those reality shows. They drink and then they snap out. Now they fighting each other. It's just chaos. Personality disorders are pretty much a cluster of behaviors and they sit on a spectrum ranging from mild to severe. With that being said, these behaviors manifest differently from person to person. So you may hear some behaviors that make you feel like somebody you know have this disorder, but one or more of the characteristics are not present. You're like, nah, they don't do that. Nah, they not really attention seeking, but they do manipulate, so you dismiss it and think, nah, I'm probably just tripping or even reaching for something that isn't there. Again, it is not your job to diagnose, but recognize the behaviors in order to protect yourself and maybe even the person with the disorder as well. Because people who act like this really have mental health issues and they are the ones getting killed by police officers. But people who have experienced trauma are usually misdiagnosed with BPD due to the similar behaviors that they display, such as radical shifting of moods and reactive explosive behaviors. But it can be a result of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, or CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. The difference between the two is one happens after the event and has identifiable triggers, PTSD, and CPTSD happens over a series of or repeated events having a wider range of triggers, hence the word complex. An example would be a soldier in a war experiences PTSD versus a prisoner of war experiences CPTSD, or getting hit by a car versus being in a cult. Everyone who experiences a trauma experiences PTSD or CPTSD. Not all people experience this. Someone who survives abuse and then being diagnosed with BPD can be heart-wrenching and further make the target believe that they were the problem in their manipulative and controlling relationship. Whether you are diagnosed with this or not, being abused is not okay, nor is it your fault. If anything I've mentioned in this episode about abuse or any PTSD resonates with you, I urge you to seek professional help so that you can get the treatment you need to be the healthiest and your best self. The usual treatment for this is actually mindfulness and self-regulation, which would be beneficial for us all. Number 5, histrionic personality disorder, which is an overly dramatic and emotional and attention-seeking personality. They are led by their sex drive and strangeness, if you will, and are seen as theatrical and over the top, either immature or inappropriate, as if they're playing a role in a movie of their own making, completely out of touch with reality. They are desperate for approval, and if anyone shows them the least bit of interest in them, no matter how superficial, they will misinterpret this as the relationship being more substantial than it actually is. Last but not least, addictive personality. When someone is struggling with addiction, they will tend to lie, exploit, steal, cheat, deny, manipulate, threaten their way in or out of anything so that they can get their fix. It's not always easy to tell whether it's the addiction causing this behavior or their true personality. The only way you or a licensed clinician would be able to tell the difference is if the person with the addiction was sober for at least 18 months. I know, right? That's a long time for the effects of a substance to wear off and allow the true personality to shine through. But They could also suffer from both addictive and personality disorder. It's possible for a person to be stuck in an emotional state that they were in when they began using the substance. Yes, if you started at 15, it's a possibility you're still that 15-year-old, and the reason why you started taking them drugs, you're still unhealed from. Regardless of the source of their behavior, you have every right to set the necessary boundaries with people who are behaving in a way that is unhealthy for them and for you. Having the information about all of these disorders are helpful in understanding where the behavior is stemming from or why they're behaving this way, but it is not an excuse, nor does it make it okay for them to mistreat you in any way. Character disturbed versus personality disorder. I know many of us feel like having a concrete diagnosis will confirm that it is them and not me, and that I'm not crazy for feeling how I feel or knowing that I'm seeing the problematic behavior right before my eyes. You know that part of you that says, I know he loved me, but why does he act like that? Or why does she treat me like this? What's wrong with them? Because I know those were the kind of questions that I was asking, which prompted me to do a Google search and end up down this narcissist rabbit hole. But sometimes we focus too much on the trees instead of the forest. Got to look at the big picture here, right? Of course, the tree would be the diagnosis. The forest is the behaviors that the diagnosis presents. The behaviors that are being displayed, one of the most helpful distinctions that aren't normally made is what Dr. George Simon refers to in his book, Character Disturbance. There is a difference between problematic or even personality disordered behavior and a disturbed character. A character disturbed person is one who lacks a conscience and guiding principles of right and wrong. So while those who have personality disorders may be annoying, frustrating, or even exhausting, with solid boundaries put in place, these behaviors can be tolerated, or tolerable, if you will. However, if a person is character disturbed, meaning they have no moral or ethical code, their character is instead guided by their selfish and destructive impulses, it would be in your best interest to get away from them as soon and as far as possible. There can be no healthy relationship with someone who lacks empathy, remorse, honesty, dependability, loyalty, or if their actions repeatedly harm you or others. Being around someone or trying to have something healthy with someone who is like this will only result in chaos and will cost you either your safety or sanity. This is important to understand because people who have family or friends that have addictive personality disorder, BPD, bipolar disorder, or even pass a psychiatric evaluation with flying colors, they believe that the relationship can be saved. And if a diagnosis isn't made, they are unaware that these people lack the empathy and remorse, and there's no possible way you'll be able to have a healthy relationship with them. At the end of the day, you are the only one who can determine how you need or want to be treated. You create your own standards and boundaries. If they constantly mistreat you in a way that isn't okay and they won't stop no matter what, then it is your prerogative to set the necessary boundaries for your own safety and peace. Doing this isn't selfish. It's self-protective. I'm going to end this episode here. I hope that you gained value from this week's episode. And I'd like to thank you all so much for joining me. I'm hoping that my next episode, I will have an amazing guest who will tell their story about their toxic relationship. Stay tuned. Remember, you are guided, you are protected, and you are safe.